questions?
Yeah, I have one question which any of you can comment on. And it occurred to me, I think in discussion of the proposed amendment to the California standard to exempt strollers and whatnot. And I assume you've all talked about this topic in front of various audiences, because I'm envisioning you go before an audience and say there's a proposal to exempt child strollers from a flame retardant flammability standard, and I would think an awful lot of a lay audience would say, oh my God, they want my child's stroller to burn. I mean, what wacky person would propose such an exemption? You know, this must be some horrible industry effort to endanger our children. How does this concept work with an audience? When you talk to an average audience about you know, not only not requiring but prohibiting flame retardant chemicals in child products, do people say, yeah, gee, that makes sense, we should be keeping poisons away from our children? Or do audiences tend to say, oh my God, why would you want to do that to my child?
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I mean, for me, I find making the whole case is what's compelling. And I have had the comment made to me, oh, so you just want kids to burn up before you get the chance to make the whole case. Right. And I also think that going back to the Chicago Tribune article, it's a great case in point to really make the case that, I mean, I think it's a well-researched series to show that the chemicals that we rely on to protect us from, to protect children are not effective. They're not protecting children. They're harming children. And I think that for myself, I find that that's a very helpful part in terms of making the case that this is something that needs to be done. We need to get these chemicals out of products.
Let me just say that for me, I work in a community that obviously, you know, I have to break things down, given the work that I do, to some of the most, you know, basic levels. And I think that's helpful to all communities. I never start, or I try very hard not to use the term flame retardant, because that's a framing and a marketing that the Chemistry Council and the, you know, that's been set up by their marketing people. And so you hear me say again and again, and I tried to emphasize it in my testimony, toxic chemicals that masquerade as flame retardants. Now, that's a mouthful to get out, okay? But I think it starts the process of breaking down for people this concept that, you know, chemicals are providing these magical, wonderful properties, right? That the chemical industry does trade in very effectively. And so when I'm talking about these issues, I am talking about toxic chemicals, and then going into the discussions of what benefits they do provide and what benefits they don't provide based on the science that I'm reading and seeing. And the science that's being produced by my colleagues at Columbia Children's Center or Mount Sinai, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that the minute you start to walk into the discussion with a framing that is someone else's, who has designed that framing to ensure their profitability long term, that's immediately you losing the battle. And so I don't use it. And I attempt very hard to make sure that when I'm talking about these issues, that I am talking about toxicity. I am talking about the harms. I'm talking about the fact that, you know, these chemicals have very serious health impacts and consequences. And when you talk about it in terms of health impacts and consequences, I think folks are able to grasp a hold of it more effectively.
I'll just weigh in with, I think people instinctively know from their life experience. I've never met somebody who could tell a story of a child who was injured in their stroller due to a fire, or injured while they were having their diaper changed on a changing pad due to a fire.
Although the answer might be, well, yeah, that's because they have flame retardants.
It could be, that could be. But even then, no one has a story of a fire happening while their baby was in the stroller, and were it not for the flame retardants, some damage would have happened. Everyone knows kids who have learning disabilities, who have asthma, who have, everyone knows of stories of, rising cancer rates. So I think the key is to make people understand the link between these chemicals and these harms. I think people are not so concerned that their children are going to burn in their stroller. I think they're very concerned about the other health impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And that concludes our hearing. Thank you.